Do you ever feel like there's not enough time in the day? Like every day? Today, we will practice applying some of the really incredible strategies that I have learned to make the most of your time. This is going to be a walkthrough of exactly how to use time boxing to manage your time so that you can be more effective, more efficient, and not so just busy. When you know how to manage your time effectively, you still won't accomplish everything that you want, right? Or do everything that you want, but you will be more productive and you will be more efficient and you'll be less stressed, and you'll even have a better reputation with other people for being capable and reliable. We have limited time and we always want to do more than we have time for. Always, always, always. So if you feel like you've been failing, that might be why. It's always going to be challenging, obviously, because we don't have enough time to do everything that we want to do. But when you are feeling happier and more relaxed and more clear, then you're in a great place to help other people too, which is great. My name is Bree. I have ADHD, and that unofficially makes me a distractibility expert. I have tried a lot of different strategies and tactics in my time. A constant struggle. Let me know in the comments if you can really tried a bunch of different time management strategies and where things are just not sticking. I mean, a little disclaimer, and this might explain for you why your strategies have not stuck so far. Right? Because the 4 steps to indistractable focus, they're not strategies to choose from, they're steps to take, right? And you can try them on their own, but to be truly indistractable, you have to start with the first step to reach the second one. And the first step is mastering your internal triggers. Dealing with what is inside is not necessarily the first priority for a lot of people when they look at time management. I teach a course called Perfectly Human, and that's really where we deal with a lot of these internal triggers. You know, like, did you know that only 10% of distraction is actually external? 90% of distraction actually begins as an internal process. I did not know that. So give me a thumbs up if you learned something new right now. As a therapist and as a major psychology and neuroscience nerd, I know that mastering your internal triggers, tolerating discomfort, requires 5 really essential skills: mindfulness, interoception, metacognition, and mindfulness is just being aware. Interoception of like the present moment. Interoception is being aware of what's happening in your body. Metacognition is being aware of what's happening in your mind. Emotional regulation is the other skill, and compassion as well. And these are all essential for taking care of internal triggers or managing your internal state, which is what I teach in my mental health course. If you can't seem to manage your time, you might want to start by managing your mind. And I would definitely recommend that you start there if you do struggle with distraction. Traction ultimately means action that brings you closer to your goals, right? Distraction is action that brings you away from your goals. Both of them are action, but not all action is built the same, right? Being busy isn't the same as being effective. And so sometimes being busy can be the distraction. And for most people, the busier you are, the less you actually achieve, the less effective you actually are. A great way to be more effective with the time that we have, which is limited and precious, is to schedule ourselves according to time boxes. And this actually just helps us to not work beyond what we've decided is our limit, to more intentionally spend our time on the things that really matter to us, like our close relationships and reaching our big goals. A certain number of hours or days is given to a time box. That's given to an activity. You do that activity within that time. You use that time and only that time to complete the task. The magic of this, the science of this, creative minds work so well within constraints. You're allowing yourself to focus on, this one task within, like just in this window, and it allows you to kind of press up on both sides of that window of time and fill the space in between. Deadlines like this are actually particularly beneficial for people who are procrastinators, like myself and like anyone with ADHD. Even if you don't finish it within that hour, you're going to get more focused work done within that hour than you would if you didn't have those time constraints. If you're a perfectionist, like me and like everyone in my program, you might spend a lot of time stuck in analysis paralysis while making decisions too, or you could struggle to put out any work that isn't finished or perfectly polished. Time boxing can really keep these tendencies in check and limit the amount of time that we spend on those more low value activities. If you struggle to concentrate during the day, also, it might be because you're multitasking. Time boxing allows us to narrow our focus to one activity at a time. I am not sitting here as someone who has this figured out and telling you about these ideas and concepts. I am someone who is learning these things alongside of you, and I am just sharing what I think is very interesting and very useful information, and what I will be using personally as I begin to work on my own development personally and professionally. Good time management for me, for you, for anyone, relies on 3 things. Upon looking at this, I'm really seeing how I have maybe not supported myself in managing my time effectively enough. Planning, of course, right? That's what we think of when we think about time management. But recording it and reflecting on it are the other 2 pillars. And I don't know if you've ever seen a stool standing up on one leg before. It doesn't. Learning how to do the time boxing and how to engage in the winning week method is not going to be easy. You really will struggle as you switch tasks, like when you have those hard lines. I know I have. And you may find it difficult to stick to a schedule because of interruptions in your life. If you're like me, if you're like a lot of the people in my course who have ADHD, time blindness is a very real thing for us. And so it's hard to estimate how long something is going to take us. That's why recording is actually so important, because you might not set appropriate lengths of time. Make a note of that. Time boxing is a really powerful approach, but it does take time to master. So as you engage in this and, take everything with a grain of salt and a spoonful of sugar, stay flexible, stay curious, and be reflective about your experience. Have fun with it. That's what the course is really good for as well. And I'm sorry I keep plugging it, but learning how to manage that internal voice that beats you up for not being perfect is absolutely essential to being able to actually follow through on things. Because when we beat ourselves up, we actually deplete ourselves of very important neurotransmitters and hormones that help us move forward. Let's go on to planning to plan. This is actually incredibly important. This is one of the most important things, because if we don't actually have a plan for making our plan, if we don't know how we're going to get to calendarizing our lives and time blocking our lives, we're never going to get there. So pre-plan. Choose your tool. Choose what you're going to use to do your time blocking with, and do that right now if you can. Get your day planner. Figure out which app you're going to use or which software you're going to use. There's a few that I've listed here. So ClickUp, Asana, Trello, Todoist is my new favorite. I just tried this today. It blew my mind. It's so cool and very user-friendly. So also want to choose a day to plan. If you're going to be doing this weekly. And really, honestly, if you can do this weekly, you are going to see your productivity skyrocket, and you're going to feel so much better about how you're using your time. You'll recognize that even those times when you are, resting, Netflix and chilling, doing just like self-care stuff, that's something that you've planned into your day. It's intentional. It feels good to do it. It feels good to rest when that's your intention. Instead of it being your default. So choose a day to plan that's before the start of your week. ideally Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What's really nice about doing this on a Friday is that you have the weekend then to enjoy yourself, and you don't need to be so scrutinizing of your schedule at that time. You can really kind of let things go and be in the flow and be more, social and open to possibilities, which is really nice. If you wait until Monday to plan your week, you will be in a space of reacting instead of being able to respond effectively, because you have perspective on what's going on and you know what you can say yes to and what you can say no to. Right now, though, today is your day. So we are going to get into it. I don't care what day of the week it is for you. I want you to be prepared, because we are going to jump into the winning week method right now. So here are some diagrams for my visual learners. You can copy these down for yourself if you like, just for a quick reference when you do this exercise on your own next week. And let me know if you try this and what you learn from the process, because I am working on this myself and I'm learning with you, and I'm curious about everyone else's, kind of engagement with this. This is a very, very simplified version of what we're about to do. But ultimately, once you learn the process and once you get familiar with the types of questions that you need to ask yourself and the kind of information you need to be looking for and including in this process, this will be enough to jog your memory and get you going. So I really like that he actually tiered it in this way and put this very headspace, vision-y stuff up top. And then as you get down into the priorities, the weekly priorities, that's really heart-centered, I find, right? You're really focusing on what really matters to you. And then as you go down, you're getting more grounded, getting more practical and actionable and playful. I just think that it's just a really nice flow and makes a lot of sense to me. But no matter how useful this might be, you're not going to do it if you think that it's boring or difficult or stressful, which is why it's so important to take this lightly and to do what Demir Bentley calls step 0, removing resistance. Step 0 is basically sabotaging your self-sabotage. If you are looking at a whole week of things that you need to do, that might feel really overwhelming. And anxiety will then sabotage the whole process, because when we feel anxious, we don't want to feel anxious anymore. And one of the easiest ways to not feel anxious about something is to stop thinking about it. But then having no plan is actually the thing that's creating so much anxiety, because when you look at your week and you know that you've scheduled everything in, and it's not everything, right? But you know that you've scheduled the important things in, and that you've allocated time for, any kind of mistake, or any kind of emergency that might come up as well, you feel a lot more calm, right? And so what we want to do is we want to make pre-planning a special event so that we can overcome the resistance to the planning process. And so I just want to take you through the process right now while it's engaging and you have somebody to, quote unquote, be with through this process. But you want to transform your resistance to this process into craving it. Plan a lunch or a brunch, with yourself or with another person. Or maybe, you go for your favorite bubble tea or your favorite drink, or maybe you just order your favorite takeout for a stay-in planning session. That's what I do. I get myself a really nice breakfast delivered to my house every Friday morning, and it's lovely. And when I say every Friday morning, I've only been doing this for about a month. I'm not much further along than you are. I've just had a little bit of time to think about it. It took me about an hour and a half today to kind of set myself up from scratch with Todoist, with all of the things that I need to do. I took myself through this process. So that's still fresh in my mind. Make sure that you have something like that. That's the pre-planning part. So download your app, do that thing, get your calendar ready to go. You can come back to this video if you're not ready to do that right now. I would love to walk through this with you in real time and not just have it be something that you are, watching and taking notes on. I want you to really engage in the process, because that's really where when you discover what it can do for you and what it does do for you when you engage in it, that's really encouraging and makes you want to do more of it. Right now, we're not looking at our schedule necessarily, but just take out a pen and a paper or make a note on your phone or, type it out on your computer or something. But we want to learn a lesson from the last week and create a positive feedback loop. If you could relive the past week 1,000 times, what would perfect execution have looked like? And what worked so well this week that you should double down on it next week? I love that question. My therapist brain gets all tingly when I read stuff like this. Like, good question, so good. Because this isn't about perfect execution of every week. This is perfect execution of last week. What would that have looked like? And then you want to recognize what you did do well and what you should double down on. So it says here, 5 minutes. I think learn a lesson, 5 minutes is pretty good. But what I'd like you to do is press pause on the video and just follow along, read these questions, do some note-taking and writing, and discover what that lesson is for you this week and what to bring forward into the next week. If you haven't paused, pause now and wait 5 minutes and then come back, okay? But if you haven't, if you have paused and you are finished, then fantastic. Let's choose our leveraged priority for the week. So step 2, choosing a leveraged priority. Figuring out what is your priority is one of the hardest things to do for someone with ADHD. It is built into our brains that is not, our brains are not built for that. You have to ask yourself, what you can do that makes all future weeks easier. That's your highest leverage priority. This one you can see is 10 minutes. I really want you to maybe even set a timer for yourself and only allot yourself that 10 minutes. We are time boxing right now as we go as well. We want to be efficient, or at least practice. To find your most leveraged action, or what Demir calls your most leveraged yes. What's the one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? You have to ask yourself as well, does this make me uncomfortable to think about this particular task? For example, the hardest thing for me, probably the thing that I got the most worried about, the most nervous, and I'm the most hesitant to do, takes me the longest to do always, to get to the task, is recording myself. And so that's, at the same time, it is me recording myself that is probably the highest, it's the highest leverage task for me. I can communicate most effectively with my audience this way, communicate quicker this way than writing all of my thoughts. And that's just something that becomes very clear to me. What's the one thing that you can do that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? Give you those 5 minutes on this question because there is another. So just 5 minutes here, okay? And I'll just 5 minutes. If you haven't paused, do that now. And if you have, wonderful, welcome back. We will go on to our leverage distraction. What's the one thing that you can not do such that by not doing it, everything becomes easier or unnecessary? Steve Jobs says that every yes is supported by 1,000 no's. Saying no feels uncomfortable a lot of the time, right? So when we look at this, one thing that we need to say no to, and I'll offer my example here. I am home with my roommate's dog all day, every day while she's out at work. And the dog and I are very close. We have a great relationship and I love her so much, but she is a constant distraction and she needs so much attention and she's so adorable. So I want to play with her all the time. But I recognize that if I could limit that once in a while, that would actually free up a lot of my attention to focus on doing things like this. But it's also really uncomfortable for me to ask that. For this week, while I focus on these things, can someone else be responsible for her? It's hard to do. right? It is outside of my comfort zone, but it also is very obviously something that will make a big difference for me. What is the one thing that you can not do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? Pause for 5 minutes. If you haven't paused, please do and explore this question. If you have already, congratulations. This is amazing. Now we get into like the nitty-gritty stuff. You interrogate every hour of your upcoming 2 weeks. This process is going to take about 10 minutes as well. Okay, so you can start a timer for yourself and make sure that you're not going over 10 minutes. What shouldn't be on your calendar but is? What is there that doesn't need to be there? Decline those events, erase those events so they don't clutter your calendar. Take it off, right? Or if you're like ho-hum about it, this is not about being ho-hum about things, okay? Be intentional with your time. What shouldn't be on your calendar but is? What should be on your calendar but isn't? What should be on your calendar but isn't on your calendar? If it's a hard edge commitment, meaning that you have to be at a specific place at a particular time, even via video conference, then make sure that you block off all the time that you will need to get there, set up, prep, tear down, travel home, that kind of thing. When we're not aware of how we're blocking our time, that's when we feel really overwhelmed, like we're too busy and that we can't get to the things that we wanted to do, is because we didn't actually account for the time that it would take. How much flex time will you need to deal with the emergencies that you face this week? Block off big chunks of time in your calendar to deal with unforeseen issues that are bound to come up. You're probably maybe going to waste some time doing something, so it's good to chunk a little bit of time, a couple times through the week or like all on Friday, to make sure that you have time to finish up tasks or to shuffle them down the line when you miss them. What could be arranged more optimally in your calendar? If you have phone calls to make, or things to confirm and check in with, or certain emails or people that you need to contact, block a big chunk of time for that, for admin, phone calls, emails. I would definitely be putting this into your calendar as I'm asking you these questions, chunking it out. And then anything that kind of like pops into your head when you're not exactly sure where to slot it in, just write it down on the side. Take some notes for yourself. When exactly will your leverage priority get done? Estimate a generous amount of time and then add some buffer to it so that it's a little bit more gentle, a little bit more wiggle room. And now schedule that time directly into your calendar right now. Make sure that that's one of the first things that goes in there. Ideally, you'll be planning this for a Monday or a Tuesday. It's when your energy and attention are at their peak because you just come from a rest period. Rest is super important, by the way, so don't overschedule your weekends. Stack that early in the week so that it's done by the end of the week and so you can relax. Are there any landmines in your calendar? The landmines are the things that are going to knock you off the course of what you are committed to doing. So look for those and look for those forgotten responsibilities. If something's going to go wrong, it's better to know now and to prepare for it now. Did your calendar review unearth any hidden tasks? Just write them down and save them on the side. But first, I hope you've taken a full 10 minutes to go through these questions. Now we're going to move on to triaging your task list. The process is going to take about 10 minutes. So what you want to do is make an exhaustive list of all of your tasks and subtasks. And the idea here is to look at all the things that you would like to do in one place and then triage. Copy everything onto your to-do list. Preferably a task management software, right? Because you can kind of flag them as priorities and you can, date them and time them and all the things and put them into a calendar. And it's really useful to use something like that. Again, I used to do this today and it honestly blew my mind. I'm so excited about it. Break your large priorities. This is also something that you want to do when you see those larger things. And this isn't something that I did that I should have done on mine, is breaking those large priorities into smaller tasks. So review your total task list and bring all of your due dates in there up to date. Clear out any of your, any finished tasks, things that you already have done that you can scratch off the list. Do that. push low priority things to the next week if you can, or just to the bottom of the list. And I'm kind of talking this through as though you are actually using a software where you can do these things. If you don't yet, come back to this when you do. And once you have all of that on your list, then we triage. And like I said, the first 2 times that you do this, it's probably going to take you a long time to do it because you don't already have a developed task list and you're not used to scrutinizing your time like this, right? So it is going to take a couple tries. I know it will take me a few tries. We are in this together, okay? So what we want to do is use this decision tree. So there's a bunch of questions that we're going to ask ourselves to see if things should stay. What should get done this week has to wait or needs to die. So is it related to my number 1 leverage priority is the first question. If it is related to your number 1 priority, it stays on the list. Bang, right? But what you can do if you notice that and you don't have the subtasks, then make sure that you are noting and including those subtasks and all the tasks that need to be done to support those tasks. If this isn't a number 1 leverage priority, topic, and you know what that is now. So if it's not attached to this, then the answer is no, and we move on to the next question. So is it incredibly time sensitive is the next question. You likely have tasks that you have to get done or risk getting fired or losing business. And as long as you've put your key priority first, you can keep these urgent tasks on your list, right? You are going to need to keep your job if that's part of this, right? But if it's not urgent, then move on to the next question. Can this be code? Which means, can it be terminated? Can it be automated, consolidated, or outsourced or delegated? Invariably, you'll find that you have more tasks than anyone can do, even if they worked around the clock. Or is it a someday task? Right? It's a someday task if it's not related to your key priority. Yet there's no real specific timeline or consequences to not doing it this week. It takes time away from leverage priorities. Right? Those tasks kind of muddy the water and they make it harder to see the crucial tasks. So get them out of your list. If it is a someday task, you can move it to your someday list and off your to-do list. Review your someday tasks monthly. If it's not a someday task, then move on to the next question. If you've gotten this far, if you've made it this far without classifying this task or getting it off the list, you might just need more information. You have to be asking yourself, how can you do the most good with your limited supply of time? And that's going to bring us to supply and demand, which is another 10 minutes. So pause if you need more time, or we can move on to step 5, which is calendarizing your tasks and projects. So you want to marry all of your monthly commitments to the time that you have, to time that is available. You're going to have to make some hard choices here about what's actually possible. And there's no need to schedule 1 month ahead, but do go ahead and block out, blocks of time to work on major projects. If you can't finish it this week and you know that it's due in 3 weeks, then go ahead and block that time in those future weeks to make sure that that thing gets done. How we do the marrying the commitments and, making sure that every demand has some supply, or that there's less demand because we only have so much supply. That's the time box calendar. So full, I was going to say circle, but square, right? It's box. Anyways, we're going to put the good stuff first. That is the most important thing to do. So in your time box calendar, now that you are actually putting that whole list into your calendar, put in the good stuff first. Make sure that you are prioritizing your personal well-being and your quality social time. Your relationships are, truly central to your well-being. I'll say this once, I'll say it again. Mental health is directly related to social health. It is directly related to relational health. When our mental health suffers, our relationships suffer, and when our relationships suffer, our mental health suffers greatly. So prioritize your relationships, okay? And prioritize connection. It is so important. Put that good stuff in first. That self-care stuff, make sure that it is in your schedule so that it is prioritized, so that you are prioritized, because you're the only one who can actually fully do that for you. And then you want to put in your deep work, right? That planned deep work for your leverage priority. And you want it to be early in the week. You want to put in enough flex time that you have some movement, and that way you're just not going to be panicking at the end of the week and scrambling because you didn't make any of that time. And then you want to stuff all the shallow work into the cracks between all the deep good stuff. And you want to make sure that all of that time supply is allocated and you know what you're going to be doing in the gaps. Pro tip, directly from Demir, limit yourself to 10 tasks a day. One big task. And you don't want any more than 50 tasks a week. You might also need to cut some things out in order to cut that down to a reasonable amount. You might need to make some hard choices about what's possible. You cannot do it all. You can't do it all, babe. You might need to adjust your expectations. So, time box calendar. This part is going to take you some time. This part is going to take you some time. It says 10 minutes. Here it says 10 minutes. But this process takes a little bit of time. Try to do it within 15. Okay, give yourself a little buffer there, but we don't want this whole process to take over an hour. As it is, now it's 45 minutes long. And then you get to execute your plan. So once everything is calendarized, so I'll say like, okay, pause. And if you need more time, just pause. And if you don't need more time, amazing. You can just get up and go and start executing your plan, right? And what you want to do within these time boxes is you want to use kind of like mindset hacks to stay focused. You want to make sure that those internal triggers are not messing up your progress, right? So these are skills that are taught in Perfectly Human in my mental health course. Please check it out. It's awesome. And you want to gamify your day. You want to have fun with it. You want to learn along the way and be lighthearted about it. If you are beating yourself up about it, it's just, you're not going to stick with it, right? You're not going to stick with it and it's not going to improve. And don't expect to be perfect the first time around. You're learning. And here we are. Adult behavioral change is the most difficult thing for a sentient human being to accomplish. This is hard stuff. You're doing hard work. You're doing hard work. It doesn't have to be perfect. And even with the best intentions and all of the powerful tactics, it's really easy to fall back into bad time management habits or to not have any habit around it at all, right? Which is why you should subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'm going to be posting weekly videos on these topics, and join Perfectly Human so that you have that community accountability piece and you have weekly live chats. This is, a big thing that I do with Demir on Fridays, right? Is we have these layers of accountability that are built in. And so, you might want to work one-on-one with someone, to have a coach that mentors you and pushes you forward and really expects more from you and knows, because they've gotten more out of themselves, they know that you can as well. That's what a coach is for. That's what a therapist is for. And then a buddy is just someone who shares the load of responsibility with you. And that's something that you can find within communities. It's something that you can do, just like with a friend in tandem. And sometimes it can actually just be with a stranger on the internet, right? But you just want someone who gets it, gets you where you are at, and, knows the struggles that you're going through, so that you're paired up there. And honestly, right now, I feel like your buddy, because we're learning this together. If I was an expert in this, then maybe coach, but I'm definitely not there yet. However, I am an excellent coach and therapist and guide for the internal landscape stuff. And you might want a team, right? This is the benefit of having a community, is because that peer group makes you want to be better. You see them, they inspire you, and there's just a level of like really wanting to kind of like rise up to match their effort, right? You don't want to be the one falling behind, and when you are, then you kind of, move to catch up. Having a team, having a group and community is so beneficial for our progress. And then public, right? That's another layer of accountability. It motivates us to do what we declare we will do. Tell people what you're doing. Make a post about it. Make a post about it. Even right now, make a post about it. Be like, I'm trying time boxing, or I'm trying the winning week method. Has anyone heard of it? Something like that. I'm really trying to work on my time management. Give it a shot. This is actually that's actually step 4. The pact that I skipped over in the beginning is an identity pact. When you say you're going to do something, or you say that you are a certain way, or you are a certain thing, then you are actually more motivated to do it. So set yourself up for success and communicate with the people around you what your intentions are. The Thursday workshops, because this is something that I do live on Thursdays. So right here, yeah. They're for everybody, right? Anybody can access these, right? That's public, and that's something that you can use for accountability, are these live Thursday workshops. Something that you can do. So that's something that is reliably going to be happening for you every Thursday if you want to jump on. And if not, you can always access the YouTube channel and check in every week there with the new videos. So there's that accountability too. Communicate in the comments. There's community building there as well. But joining the Perfectly Human course, which is a little bit more intimate, and you have that kind of the buddy and the team sensibility about it, it requires that you book an interview with me so that I can make sure that the course aligns with your goals and that you're a good fit for the program and group. I only accept applications from perfectionists, people pleasers, and procrastinators with warm hearts and creative minds. Those are my people. And I want to help them not be so perfectionistic. I want to help you not be so people-pleasy, and also to not procrastinate because of perfectionist and people-pleasing tendencies, because that's generally what it is. So if that's you, if you're a perfectionist, people-pleaser, procrastinator with a warm heart and a creative mind, applications just opened today for our next learning cohort, and will only be open for 1 week. So if this interests you, please book your call as soon as possible. We start May 1st. So it's about a 45-minute interview. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions and see if I can help you get from where you are to where you want to go with the program. There's a process called life mapping or treasure mapping. And that's when you really see your goals clearly over time, and that really motivates you to give them time they need. And personal mission statements also are really helpful for being organized and staying committed to your plans. This is going to be the topic of next week's workshop. Do life mapping, treasure mapping, that whole thing, mission statements, so that you have a really good sense as you're moving through and creating time for things, that you really know exactly what you're going for and why you are doing it and why it's worth it. Because you're worth it. Last little bit, thank you so much for your support. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more mental health and well-being content. Super happy to have you here. Thank you so much for your eyeballs. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for you. I really hope to see you in Perfectly Human soon. Take care.